SMGs are a pretty special weapon type in Destiny. Actually, they get completely smothered by the actual special weapons in Destiny, but nonetheless, they're extremely fun to use. Even compared to ARs that also have a tracking aim requirement, there's just something about them, you know? And that's why today we're gonna rank every single one of them for you with respect to PvP. I used the word we because I brought along some help. A gentleman named Lunarz, who is literally cracked out of his mind in this game, helped me work on this video. I got to know him by matching him in Rumble over and over, and I kid you not, this guy's probably the best player I've gone up against consistently. The beauty is he usually mains double SMGs, so he definitely knows a thing or two. Please go give him a follow on his Twitch channel right after you hop off the YouTube app. That would really mean a lot to me. Jumping right in, we're going to start with the borrowed time. We have what's called an aggressive archetype, meaning it's a 750 RPM, dealing 16 to the body and 22 to the head. It's actually only 720 RPM when you check it in the editing software, but either way, this archetype is sort of like Piggy in the middle of all the SMGs. It doesn't have the lethality of a 900 RPM up close, but then it also doesn't carry the range of a 600 RPM. That being said, it's actually got a couple of things going for it. Number one is the base zoom of 15. That amount isn't king by any means, but it does trump the 13 zoom that many other SMGs are stuck with. Then on top of this, borrowed time actually drops rangefinder, which gives an additional 10% zoom, so it works out to like 16.5. Now, why does this matter? It means you get to keep dealing max damage above 20 meters and have a fighting chance in today's meta. In the other column of perks, you have something called Frenzy, which gives you extra damage, reload, and handling when you're in combat. Now, there's a video out there, I think, from Cool Cheese who explains Frenzy in depth if you want to know more, but just trust me, you can become an absolute monster in sixes, so do not sleep on this perk. Ultimately, with the base stats, the perk pool, sights on the gun, and overall standings in the meta, we rated this one A tier relative to the other SMGs we're going to be talking about today. One thing though, if Bungie happens to be watching this, please stop giving so many options in each column of a perk pool. We could play this game for years and never actually get to use the roles that we want. Next up is Deathadder, lightweight archetype, so it fires at 900 RPM, it deals 11 to the body and 19 to the head. The cool thing about lightweight frames are that you get a hidden plus 20 mobility to your stat, and then on top of that, you get roughly like 5%-ish of speed boost, sort of like, say, a movement exotic, Marchers. Similar to borrowed time, this one also happens to roll rangefinder. Now that sounds wonderful, right? But it's actually stuck at base 13 zoom behind that perk, and it's almost like all for naught. I don't want this whole video to become about zoom, so we made sure to take into consideration a lot more, such as the weapon sights, perk pools, their standings in the meta, the feel of the gun, base stats, everything like that. But zoom is undoubtedly the most important aspect of an SMG, and Deathadder gets completely crushed by it. I even wanted to make sure I wasn't too biased with the roles that I had, so I actually worked with some folks in our community Discord to let me run their god roles for each one of these weapons. Which, by the way, if you want to join, more the merrier. We just cracked 3,000 members, and I'd love to see you there. But anyways, Deathadder is simply outclassed by almost every single SMG. The perk options are so-so, and we ultimately ended up reading this one D tier because it is one of the last picks that I would ever go with if winning was a requirement. Onto the Ikelos SMG. A 750 aggressive, and it has a neat perk called Seraph rounds in the second column. The bullets overpenetrate targets, bounce off walls, and has a hidden bonus as well. Yes, I'm about to use the word zoom again, but believe it or not, Seraph rounds actually has a hidden zoom boost that's even better than rangefinder. I know I need to get off that train for a little bit here, but I will say it makes sense that Bungie would at least try and give this to some SMGs so they can compete. I mean, it's no Master of Arms, obviously, but hey, it's a pretty cool perk. I really love the feel of the gun, the sound, the appeal, but at the end of the day, it's just a lesser version of the borrowed time, and for PvP specifically, it's really no better than a B tier. Don't sleep on tap the trigger for this one, but not much really excites me in column 3. Okay, next up we have the Shayura's Wrath, an absolute beast and a highly sought after SMG. When Bungie nerfed shotguns, they mentioned how SMGs have had no place because of those things, and then ARs were often just the better choice because they had more range. Well, they clearly threw us a bone here with this one. It's called a precision frame archetype, meaning it deals 600 RPM and deals 16 to the body and 23 to the head. These numbers are only a hair above the 750 RPM damages, but they carry way more range. This weapon in particular can deal max damage at nearly 30 meters, and that's without killing wind being procced. One bad thing about this SMG is that the sights are actually really wobbly, so if you run max mobility with high strafe speed, it can be tougher to track, but you do get used to it. A huge thing with this SMG too is that most rolls are plenty great. Like, I love almost every perk on the thing. Heating Up, for example, one of the newest additions to the game, makes you feel like you cannot miss. It can roll with kill clip, has a smaller perk pool, and just overall hands down an S tier SMG. The only downside is that it's behind a freaking cheat wall now, isn't it?
Oh my fucking god, bro! Bro!
Coldfront. This one makes me sad. It's the Antiope clone, but in 750 RPM form. Base zoom is complete dog water. I mean, you feel like you need to bring a gift to your opponent's front door just to get close enough to kill him. The re-released version took away rangefinder and added very little to get anyone excited. Rampage is always neat in 6s, but on this archetype, it's less valuable than other guns out there that are outside of the SMG category. And then in 3s, it becomes almost a waste anyways. The third column perks are nothing that gets me out of bed either. The sights on Coldfront are by far my favorite out of every SMG, and that's why I'm so sad about it, because it's just such a bad weapon. Coldfront unfortunately landed a spot in the D tier. Escape velocity. Now, this one's actually really sweet. It's a lightweight 900 RPM. It's wonderful to shred people in 6s with it, and you can confidently win your duels in 3s as well. You can crack 20 meters on this thing and really catch people off guard. Like, they don't expect a 900 to delete you from that distance. It has excellent handling for tight gameplay. The sights are fine on it. Not much to complain about the base stats. It's really got all you need, but the biggest holdback is the perk pool. I actually did grow to like hipfire quite a bit on it since the latest patches that Bungie have made. Then in the fourth column, depending on your subclass, I'd probably say that Elemental Capacitor is your best bet there. But outside of those, there aren't really any superstars per se. We really struggled with this one, but with other SMG options out there that we're going to be discussing, we ended up rating this one B tier for the current meta. Next up is Friction Fire. This one is another 600 RPM, so you know right out the gate you're going to have a comfortable range. It's not the most frequent weapon to drop, that's for sure, with a pretty niche method of acquiring it, but it's an excellent weapon. Nearly 25 meters of range, more than that if you have Killing Wind procced, solid stability, which arguably isn't as important as you think on an SMG, but it does help a lot for our console folks, for example. And ultimately, when someone picks this thing up for the first time, they can hop into Crucible and feel totally okay. It's certainly no Shayura's Wrath, but one bonus is it's your only kinetic 600, so do not delete one if you get it. Not a lot more to say about this one other than it's just a solid, reliable pick. We rated Friction Fire an A tier SMG. It was a tight race with escape velocity for a bit there, but honestly in the current sandbox, this one has the slight edge. Okay, the Stochastic, right. This one is very unique. In fact, I think Drewski made an entire video on this if I'm not mistaken, but basically at base, it's a 900 RPM lightweight, but it has a special perk called Phase Mag, and that's in the second column, not the third or fourth. What that does is it turns it into a 600 RPM, but keeps the lightweight frame movement bonuses. Definitely neat, but it's sadly completely wasted by the fact that it has no range. To be clear here, I know that's sounding like a bit of a broken record, but Stochastic has one of the worst ranges you can get, and it's incredibly frustrating in the Crucible. What upset Lunarz and I the most was that the year 1 version was so cool. It had better zoom, a way nicer sight compared to this one, and just unfortunately this was a miss from Bungie in my opinion, and ultimately we rated it C tier. Okay, can we get some exotics up in here or what? I don't know why I waited so long. Huckleberry. I have a love-hate relationship with you. It's weird between PC and console too. Like, this thing apparently shreds on console, but I'm ultimately rating all of these relative to one another. So let's just dig into it. First off, we have the fact that it's an aggressive frame, so that means 750 RPM. The exotic perk is called Ride the Bull, which increases the rate of fire over time, and then it reloads a portion of your mag after you get a kill. It does have a catalyst, but all it does is change that word portion to the whole mag. So if you get a kill, instead of reloading a portion, now you get the whole mag back. Circling back to my love-hate relationship. You see, some days I literally can't miss with this thing. It feels like I'm dominating, I'm perfectly baiting people in, catching them with my high rate of fire, and I feel unstoppable. Then all of a sudden another day, it's like the hit registration isn't even on this planet and I've got myself questioning my internet. I was bringing this up with Lunarz, and after digging into it, he actually taught me that the optic and the bullet location on this one SMG isn't always correct. For whatever reason, sometimes wherever your reticle is showing you, the bullets are not actually going there like other SMGs would be, so it ends up really screwing with your brain. You're putting the crosshair where you need it to be, but then you're not getting that hit reg feedback. Anyway, without going down the rabbit hole, we ended up rating this one B tier. Imagine if the catalyst bumped the zoom up from 13 to say 15. Oh, even with that reticle issue, I'd start loving this gun even more. I mean, Bungie changed Mida Multitool's catalyst, right? So a man can dream. All right, let's talk about our Iron Banner treasure, the Multimach CCX. Let me get the red carpet out because this one's a 900 RPM lightweight that has scopes giving it very high zoom. I'm talking 17 in comparison to those measly 13s we've discussed about earlier. And then on top of that, you can actually pair it with a perk called Iron Reach, getting an additional 18 range from the 4th column perk. This is the only non-sunset 900 RPM SMG that can break 25 meters. The next best is escape velocity at 20, and the others are all below 18. If you get Iron Reach with Killing Wind proc, it's even higher. I'll admit this thing kicks like a mule with low stability, but I promise you, the first day I picked it up, I did not like it. Then I kept using it and using it and using it, and it became completely manageable. I'm on mouse and keyboard, so I understand that it's definitely different for people on the sticks versus a mouse, but I know that some of my really close friends who use a controller both on PC or console have talked about with enough time they were actually able to get really comfortable with a low stability on this weapon. So seriously, if you haven't used this, you need to give it a shot. Lunarz and I ended up rating this one S tier, and if you wanted to know more about it, I actually posted a video specifically for it last week. Next up is 7th Seraph. Oh, you upset me, my friend. Bungie talks a lot about power creep, right? Well, this has the reverse effect of that. Like if you looked up in the dictionary for what the antonym of power creep was, it would just show a picture of 7th Seraph. I certainly understand that it came out before Shayura's Wrath, but when you've got that one pumping nearly 30 meters, friction fire at 25, and then this one capping at 20, it's completely useless by comparison. I will toss it a bone and mention that it has the smallest perk pool with only 4 options in each column, meaning the odds of getting what you want are actually pretty sweet. Firmly Planted is super useful for sliding around cover, and Dragonfly is hilariously fun in 6s, so yes, you can definitely hop in and have a good time with this. We rated this one C tier for the given standings in the meta relative to the other SMGs. Okay, now we've got the Mida Minitool, an intrinsic trait called Mida Synergy. This is a solar energy SMG that when paired with the Mida multi-tool in the kinetic slot, it becomes elevated. It boosts your handling a massive amount and you move even faster. It's definitely fun to feel slippery with this thing and rock the double primary for a bit, but it's a friggin' pea shooter limited to 12 meters. You literally tickle your opponents. In fact, for starters, if you don't run Mida with this thing, it would probably be F tier, but I don't have that ranking. I will admit it does proc kill clip, which certainly pumps its tires when you've got that running, and when you get in a rhythm with it using the Mida, it can certainly be refreshing. So I did have fun with it, and I always have, but similar to what I've said before, if I'm going into a Crucible match that I need to win, I'm just not picking this, period. It's D tier overall, especially given the constraint with Mida. Next up is actually the Extraordinary Rendition. This is one of the higher ranged 750 aggressives, slightly edged out by a borrowed time if it rolls with rangefinder. But either way, this one's a kinetic slot SMG with over 20 meters ability. You can roll some fun perks with it in column 4, like Thresh, Tap the Trigger, which is one of my favorites, Frenzy, the one that I mentioned before, which is a super slept on perk. And in the 3rd column, I'd probably go with Firmly Planted. Honestly, just a solid, reliable pick. It's like, you know that saying where your great friend will always bail you out of jail, but your best friend is the one in the cell with you? Yeah, that's what this is. The friend that always bails you out. Solid A tier SMG. What do we got next? Riskrunner, another exotic, and it has a lot of unique things too. First up, it's actually a 4th archetype. Even though it's 900 RPM, it is not considered a lightweight, but rather an adaptive. For quick reference, here are the body and crit damages for all 4 of those archetypes. And notice that this one deals 13 to the body, which is a lot more than those 11s, but then it only deals 17s to the head, which is a lot less for the crits. Now your first instinct might be to say, well, this is lame because it doesn't shred someone as fast as a lightweight and it doesn't reward good aim hitting a bunch of headshots, right? Like for those of you rocking your aimbots, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But seriously, it's actually a super forgiving damage combination. It allows a little bit of room for error, and another SMG connoisseur named Cool Cheese has actually talked about how you rarely get an SMG kill with 100% accuracy, and that maybe Bungie removed adaptives because of how strong they could be if people actually gave them more of a chance. This one's exotic, so they obviously weren't going to sunset it, but it's probably okay because of its trash 13 zoom. First, we were going to rate this A tier with a caveat that says it can be S tier when the exotic perk is procced. It's kind of funky. If your opponent has an arc weapon equipped, this thing ascends to a whole new level, as described on screen. You become very strong in that scenario, but it just did not feel right to rate this SMG that high because the other ones in those categories are just consistently more reliable in more difficult matches especially. Then we thought, well, maybe this one's like a B tier that can become an S tier, right? But that's awkward. How do you put that in the table? So ultimately, maybe A minus. Don't have that either. We ended up putting this one B tier. Please fill the comments with your rage as long as you include your favorite color. Now you want to talk real S tier juice? Then look no further than the Tarrabah. That's right, I'm about to be a complete hypocrite. This one's an aggressive archetype and it carries what could honestly be the best perk in all of the pools. Maybe not in 3s, more so in 6s, but it's called Ravenous Beast and for good reason. When you're out there playing, every time you deal damage or take damage, you're charging the Ravenous Beast. It'll pop up on screen telling you when it's ready to unleash it. You hold that button down, reloading your SMG, and you become Super Saiyan. Your rate of fire is boosted from 750 to 900 RPM, and the damage scale is kind of crazy. It turns both your headshot and body shots to the same amounts at a massive 33 damage each. Basically, just hit your target with a bullet and you will be smiling ear to ear. The time to kill on this becomes 1/3 of a second when that's active, and that's without a damage boost, by the way. I'm pretty sure it's like less than 1/4 of a second if you actually have a damage boost. 16 base zoom to boot too. Couldn't leave a section without saying it, could I? And funny enough, the ornament actually helps the optics and the zoom even more. Oh, and the third column perk is that while the beast is unleashed, dealing damage extends it, so it becomes the ultimate clip finder. S tier for sure because it's good at base, and when you unleash the Ravenous Beast, you literally dominate anyone in your path. Now we couldn't forget the newbie of the family, right? Well, I guess not new, but new, if you know what I mean. Every Waking Moment has returned, and Bungie actually cut the perk options right in half. For example, if you actually look at D2 Gunsmith, the epic website made by Dre that I've been showing this whole time, he shows you what was on it in the past, in other words, what's been grayed out now. On one hand, it's super cool that Bungie cut a pool in half, right? Because we talked earlier about how hard it is to get the role you want when there's so many combinations. But on the other hand, they got rid of a lot of cool ones. There's still some top tier perks in column 3, for example, but unfortunately, it's a really rough combo on this weapon. When you choose a 600 RPM archetype, it's because you want to shoot someone from range. But then if it's locked at 13 zoom, or I guess technically with rangefinder just over 14, you kind of fail at doing so because the zoom is just blocking your ability. In its current state, I'd put it ahead of the 7th Seraph a hair, but since it's clearly behind the B tier SMGs in our opinion, we ended up ranking this one C tier. All right, that sums things up. But you know what the real king is? Hero's Burden. Yeah, I get it. Antiope D. I know. That's a fan favorite. It was dominant for very long. It's extremely good. I get it. But if you have a Hero's Burden in your vault, go take that thing out immediately and go give it a shot in the Crucible. It's a 25 meter adaptive base stat monster. Bring it back, Bungie. You won't. Thank you again, Lunarz, for working with me on this. Please, folks, go check him out on his Twitch channel if you want to see someone absolutely shred in the Crucible. It's really fun to watch him play. I welcome you all to follow me on Twitter if you want to catch updates from me. Join the community Discord if you want to chat directly with me, or you want to play together or do some testing and stuff like that for upcoming videos. And lastly, leave a like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. I hope you have a great day and thank you for watching.